So we're just about ready to add a character and start doing some actual coding in our game, but I thought before we get there I might have a bit of a sidebar about materials a bit more, because so far all of our materials have just been one solid colour. So for this video I thought I might try to make the grass look a little bit nicer than just this horrible green colour. If I go to my ground mesh, you can see, you may not have these things open anymore. I can click on the mesh, and then inside the mesh I can click on the material. I've just used this solid albedo color, and like I said in the very first video, that is the color that the sun will color in this particular object. But I also have the option of adding a texture, and a texture is just a picture that will be used to color in the entire grass. So what I could do is I could just Google grass texture seamless, or search for DuckDuckGo. Get an image like this. Seamless is a nice keyword. Seamless means it will wrap around nicely. Without the word seamless, you might end up with a horrible line between each of the panels, which would be called a seam. So seamless means there won't be any seams when it wraps around. And I could download this noise grass texture by Charlotte Smart, or any random grass texture that I want, and I could drop it into my game. Go grass texture seamless. It'll get imported into Godot, and I could use it in that texture field. Just drag that in there, and you'll see it has a couple of problems. The first problem is this image has come through really big. Grass is nowhere near that big. The ball is supposed to be a meter by meter ball. This grass looks huge, and that problem we can fix pretty quickly. It's in this other section called UV. So the material's got heaps of properties on it, and UV is the one for how big the grass is. It's kind of just the usual term for applying textures in 3D. So if I change the scale of this grass to be more like 10, how's 10 going to work for me? 10. Then it starts to feel a bit more like grass. Maybe even 20. Kind of depends on your grass texture. It starts to feel more like grass. But there is another problem, and this problem is much harder to fix. This is that it's extremely flat. It's easy to tell this if you play the game. Like, yeah, it's got a picture of grass on it, but it's almost like a weird plasticky flat picture of grass. We actually want this grass to be a little bit bumpy. And you might think it might be pretty hard to make a bumpy picture when we're just painting it onto a flat square box. But it can be done, and it uses a thing called normals. You might have heard the word normals in physics. It's to do with the angle that the light bounces off. We can actually change the angle that the light bounces off something, so long as we've got a second picture that shows where the light should bounce. So I've gone and grabbed this other grass texture that comes with a second image of all the normals, and this is the direction that the light should bounce. So I can't just grab any random grass texture that I find online. I have to find one that's also got this normal map to tell me what direction that the light will bounce in. And I've provided you with grass texture and some grass normals in the asset pack on Google Classroom. I haven't done it just by searching grass textures, but I haven't tried too much harder than that. I've just found this website of free textures called Polygon. It's got a whole bunch of textures. I had to sign in to get a couple of textures, and I found this flat grass texture. So that flat grass texture happens to come with a normal map as well, which means we're going to add some bumpiness to the grass. So before I start importing stuff into my game, I probably want to make a folder to keep everything organized. Let's make an assets folder inside my game. Create a new folder, assets. Just to keep everything organized, we can delete that bad grass texture and make sure I've deleted it from the mesh as well. Probably swap back the UVs. There, everything's back to how it was before. And I'm going to drag both the grass texture and the grass normals into my assets. I should have a drop down now on assets, and I've got grass texture and grass normals in there in my assets. So you've already seen what to do with the texture. You drag it onto the material. texture. And then we get some grass. It's very dark. It's much darker than the actual picture because it's combining with this green colour that I've already got. So now I can undo the green colour, set it back to what it was to start with, and I get the colour that they want the grass to be. It's kind of much more faded out grass. It looks like it is still too big, so I'm going to go back to the UV section and set it to 10. And that looks like a lot like grass already. You can see it's actually a much nicer texture even without the normals. But when we play it, it's still going to feel incredibly flat. Very, very flat grass. So we're now going to click on Normal Map and hit this checkbox to turn it on. And we'll get the option to add another texture. And this texture is for the normals. That's the direction that all of the bouncing light will travel. So I'm going to grab the grass normals texture, drop it into Normal Map. And if I zoom in on the grass, you should be able to see... I haven't changed the scale of the normal map. That's what I haven't done. I changed the scale of the grass to 10. So I need to change the scale of the normal map to 10 as well. I'm going to click on scale, change that to 10, just matching whatever I've got in my UV section. So that's 10 because that's 10. And now you can see bumps everywhere. It looks like a much more bumpy ground. Very arid looking grass, but a bumpy grass. I can click play and I can see there's actually a bit of texture there on the grass. Not that the ball cares, the ball is colliding with the collision box, so it's smoothly rolling across this bumpy looking ground. I might actually keep it looking a little bit more green than that. So if I have the texture picture and a colour at the same time, then they do combine together. I'll probably choose like a light green, and that should combine quite nicely with the grass to give me something that looks kind of green, different grass than the texture they want me to have, but it's still got some nice bumps. It still looks a lot more like grass. Check out that looks like when you play it. And we've got a nice kind of green bumpy grass there on the grass. Maybe you want to do something about the horrible looking ramp as well, so I have also included a wood texture. We don't really need any normals for the wood texture because the wood is pretty flat. So I'm going to drag the wood texture into assets. I'm going to click on my ramp mesh so I can look at the material for the ramp mesh, and I'm going to drag the wood texture into that texture field there in albedo, and I've got a blue wooden ramp. If you want a wooden coloured wooden ramp, then you just turn the colour off and you get the default wood that they want you to have. It looks pretty bright, so I might actually add a bit of colour behind it. Kind of an orangey wooden ramp. There we go. And I get a nice, maybe a little bit darker wood. I get a wooden ramp on a grassy field. It's a much more realistic looking scene just by adding a couple of materials. And you can play around with sizes. You can tweak this to your heart's content. There's all sorts of materials out there that you can find and add. They're all just flat images, but one of the things that makes things look a lot nicer is adding one of those images as a normal map, which is all those little bumps. And that's it for materials. In the next video, we're finally going to add our own player to the game.